hello everybody and welcome back to the Relai Bitcoin Session with a very special episode this time, which I think will be very interesting for newcomers especially, because we have a newcomer here, not anymore a newcomer, but like 2 years ago she was a newcomer, Ivana Mitrovic, who is actually one of the first contributors to the Relai project. I think you're among the first 4. You were person number 4 who helped, incubating and developing this whole thing. We would never have thought about being here at this stage back then. It was like 2 years ago. So yeah, I would love to tell the people who you are. Like, you can maybe introduce yourself, who you are, how did you get into this project, and how did you get into Bitcoin?
Hi, Julian. Thanks very much for welcoming me and for inviting me to your podcast. And now that you say that it's been 2 years, it just sounds like crazy. Really, like
maybe 1.5.
April 2019 when we met, actually. And it's really amazing that just to see how much you accomplished since then, and that you kind of pushed through, and now you're here. So congrats on being so persistent and achieving this. So yeah, Julian and we met on a hackathon in 2019, and just to give you a little bit of background how I came to this hackathon. So I've been living in Switzerland for a couple of years by that time, and then I worked in a bank, and then I was doing this corporate job for already 3 years, and then I realized I wanted to get into entrepreneurship. So then I started going to a lot of startup events, and then I wanted to meet entrepreneurs and build my network, and that's how you and I met. But going back before this story, I want to tell a story about how I got into Bitcoin. So which is related to how you and I met. Was that I had this friend. He was one of my best friends, and he was very much always into finance, investing in stocks, and he was very innovative. And then he invested in Bitcoin very early, and he always told me he lived on. So we worked together in Mexico, and then I moved to Switzerland, and then
because maybe that's worth saying. What did you work before? Like, what you work at UBS, right? Like, where? What were your stages before?
So so after finishing my studies, I went to Mexico, and I worked there in tax department for PwC. And then after it was basically just a 6-month trainee program. And after I finished this, then I moved to Switzerland, and I started working for UBS, first in compliance and then in private banking. And then I had this friend from Mexico who was investing in stocks, and he also invested in Bitcoin very early. And then he told me, he was, when I moved to Switzerland, he was texting me and saying, "Hey, Ivana, there's this new thing you need to really try. You need to try it out. You need to learn about it. I earned this much money from the beginning when I invested. It's called Bitcoin." And back then, I just came to Switzerland, and I was really new, and I was in this banking job, and this was like really my number 1 priority. I didn't really want to learn anything else except from like traditional finance, and I didn't even have time to take a look at Bitcoin. And then just some time passed, and all of a sudden Bitcoin price was super high, and my friend was texting me, "Oh my God, like I earned crazy, returns and everything." And then I felt like I missed out, really, like I missed out on this huge opportunity. And then I was thinking, well, now it's too late. Now it's too late to get into Bitcoin. Now it's too late to start learning about this whole new technology. And then again, I didn't do anything. And then because after some time I got bored with my corporate job, and then I wanted to get into entrepreneurship. So then I decided to go to startup events. And that's how I came to this hackathon of F10 here in Zurich in 2019. And then I was there, and I had some friends who actually were wanted to create an app, a platform related to wealth management. And this friend, he invited me to join their project because I was already in wealth management. I was already working in banking. But I said, no, I don't want to, I don't want to join this project. I want to learn something new. And then I remember there was this part where people were going to stage and pitching their project. And then they were saying, okay, I need, a developer, I need a marketing person, I need a business person. And I remember you were there on the stage pitching your app, pitching Relay. And I think this was one, like, if not, like one of the very few blockchain projects, if not the only one on this hackathon. I don't remember if there was any other.
There were some, yeah, like maybe 4 or 5 out of like 50 projects. Yeah.
Yeah, but I really like I really liked your story because I understood what this project was about. And by the way, by that point, I didn't know anything about blockchain, so I didn't do any research because I just thought it's like too much. It's like too much. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
But I heard you pitching the project, and I was like, wow, this is something that I really understand, and it's blockchain related. So so in my head, everything was blockchain. Back then, and then everything was the same. So I said, okay, I want to join this project, and that's how in the end I approached you, and then you were so kind to get me to participate in your project.
It was also very fascinating and very helpful and very, very valuable for the project because you were such a newcomer, because you had no idea what blockchain and Bitcoin is and if there's even a difference, you just had no idea, and that was very important because we also targeting exactly these people, right? And so we could learn a lot from you, and obviously you also brought a lot of other things in marketing and web developing and everything you could, and SEO and whatever. So that was it was cool. It was very good energy. I can remember.
Yeah, so, it was so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about, you were a newcomer 2 years ago, and you certainly still have a lot of newcomers, people in your environment. What are kind of the biggest pain points that you still observe or that you remember from yourself getting into Bitcoin? Like you said, it's all too complicated, and it's like, what are maybe the main pain points why people are not getting into Bitcoin still?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So the first thing that I would say is just that because, for example, I have family members who are interested in how to invest in Bitcoin, and then they, every now and then they come with a couple of questions and they ask me, hey, how does it work? How can I, secure my investment, or where do I start, or how safe is this, and so on. And then I think for them, the biggest problem is they just don't know where to start. Because, let me give you an example. So, for example, I worked in private banking, and then we had a lot of customers who were kind of, their average age was, let's say, above 50. And then many of these customers, they, for example, did not even want to use e-banking. Already, e-banking for them was something that was like super high tech. And then imagine how would you actually bring this person to use Bitcoin, or teach this person to use Bitcoin, which is something like, in their eyes, super advanced. So I think the biggest problem is that people just don't know where to start. So that's the first problem. The second one is they are not sure how this asset class performs, for example, related to others. So they know how cash works, they know how stocks work, they know how bonds work, but like what is the Bitcoin price based on? So that's another problem. And then the third problem is, once you actually explain them how they can buy and how it works, then the problem is, how do I store my keys safely?
Yep.
So that's another problem, because everybody's, like, if you lose your e-banking login or your credit cards, you can always go to your bank and your money's there. But like, what happens if, God forbid, you lose your keys, and like you stay out of your funds?
Yeah.
So that's another problem. And then like the fourth thing that I would mention is just that there's still not mass adoption, and then most of these people are, they're like late adopters, and then they're waiting for other people to adopt, and then maybe once they see that, okay, like everybody else is doing this, they're going to feel safe to also invest by themselves. So I would say that these are some of the biggest problems. And of course, today you have solutions for all of them. You can educate yourself online, and you can find all the answers, but some people, they just wait and
Absolutely.
to see what happens.
I think that these pain points are probably the same for years now. They're the same. It's just it really comes back to these things, and people have to do it themselves. They have to get into it, and that's quite an effort. And if you see, wow, it's such a huge topic, then a lot of people just also you know, they're all occupied with other things.
Yeah,
as well.
exactly. It's not their number one priority.
Exactly. But so I think what you say is true, that the first thing is that, like, the first step is the most difficult one, to, you know, educate and to get in touch with it. And what a lot of people then do is they have some Bitcoin or some crypto person in their environment, and they go and ask. And so I think the conversation, the first conversation is often very, very important. And so you certainly had some of these conversations to no coiners or to newcomers. How do you go about explaining then what Bitcoin is?
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing not to do is not to become too technical, because like once you start, you know, in marketing, this is called technobabble, and they say you should never do technobabble to your customers or, you know, to anybody, because like you can just see their eyes glaze over and then they don't even listen to you. But you should try to understand what are some of the things that they can relate to, and then try to explain. So what I would do, I would say, okay, it's a digital money, and you know, you can use it to pay for services or for products. And the difference between real money and Bitcoin is that, for example, it's not controlled by any central entity. It's decentralized, it's digital, and there's you know, limited supply, and you know, you can buy Bitcoin on a market, and the price depends on demand and supply. So these are some of the similarities and differences compared to the regular money, and I think that's something that they can understand. And then, you know, if they understand this, and if they want to know more, then you can go into details how it actually works.
Yeah, I love it. Just don't mention, you know, any technical thing, because that's what makes them fear, you know. That's what makes it complicated for them. Just leave it out and start with something they already kind of understand, right? Very cool. And so once they understood, what do you think are the main reasons? What holds them back from investing, from getting into it? Because, you know, you can get into it with $10, $20, you know? So why don't they do it?
Yeah, so once they understand, then I think the next thing would be that, I mean, what we already mentioned. So first of all, they don't know where to start. So, okay, now they understand how Bitcoin works, but where do I go now? Like, what are the next steps that I take now? You know, that's the first thing. And then the second thing, they just, I guess, maybe it's not their priority, and then they just forget about it, and they think, okay, one day I'm going to invest in Bitcoin, and it never happens in the end. And then it happens the same as it happened to me at the beginning. You know, time just passes, and all of a sudden Bitcoin prices, I don't know, as it was 20,000, and then you say, okay, now it's too expensive to invest. Why I didn't do it when the price was 3,500? So I think, you know, in this case, for example, what you're doing with Relai is very important, because you enable people to invest very easily, like beginners to invest very easily, and to set up recurring payments, which are, you set them once and then they're just there, and you can forget about it. You don't have to think about every month, okay, now I have to go to an exchange, you know, spend all this time sending money and doing this. I mean, it's the same as you set up, like, in your e-banking, automatic, like outstanding payment, and it's just there. So that's why, you know, I think, for example, I would tell all these no coiners who want to invest in Bitcoin, okay, now you go to download the app, you download Relai, and you start using it, and this is how you start investing. And plus, another benefit of this for newcomers is that they can invest small amounts of money and feel comfortable. So they don't have to think, oh my God, now I have to invest, you know, $1,000 every month.
Because a lot of them don't even know, oh, I can buy a fraction of Bitcoin, you know. They don't know that they can just get into it with $10. They think they need to buy a whole Bitcoin, a lot of them, or like they often they also just don't think about it, you know, how this would work and stuff. So yeah, I think it's the education needs to be first, for sure, and then the second step is kind of having a tool to refer to them that's very easy, so that everybody can use, like WhatsApp or whatever, right?
Yes.
Cool. And so how do you try to, if someone says, you know, it's still after kind of understanding it, or after having talked to you about it, so still maybe they are not interested in, you know, they still don't want to invest or try out with $10 or $20, what do you try to convince them at all? And if yes, how? Or how do you go about this? And do you just leave them kind of alone with their opinion?
Yeah, well, it's hard, to convince somebody who is not interested, and I think, I mean, it would be the same as if you would try to convince somebody, for example, to invest in gold or something. I mean, it's just their decision in the end. So if they are, if they consciously make a decision based on all the facts and seeing how, this like this investment gives you nice and steady returns, and the price is constantly growing, and if you invested it like many years ago, now you have this return on investment, and if they just don't care about it, then I mean, let them be, like they'll miss out on the great opportunity.
And a lot of them also, what I have experienced is a lot of them come back, after a year or two.
Yes,
like you explain it to them, you try to convince them maybe a little bit, but then they don't want to. So obviously you leave them alone because it's everyone's decision. And then even though they're so critical at this point, 1 year, 2 years, maybe 3 years later, they come back and like, okay, I thought about it. Like, I want to invest now. How should I go? It's interesting. Then it just takes a lot of time.
I think it really depends on mass adoption, and I think a lot of people wait to see what others are going to do, and then once they see that their neighbor or their cousin, invested and nothing bad happened, then they will maybe feel comfortable. Okay, now I can do this.
Yeah, also. Absolutely.
And also, I think it depends on that right now you can't really use Bitcoin to. I mean, you can pay for services, but it's not like you can. What they always mention, example, buy a coffee with it because. Of the transaction fees and so on. So I think until this happens, and until this mass adoption happens, then people will be more hesitant to invest.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's a bigger risk now. Not to go with the masses. Like you're still an outsider if you do it now. A lot of people don't want to be the outsider. So you mentioned this friend that was in Mexico. You met in Mexico, and he was very early, so he made a lot of money, right? So I think that's still a persistent thought of people, like making money. For you, is Bitcoin more like a trading asset? Like you can trade back and forth and make money out of it, buy low and sell high and stuff, or is it more like a long-term investment for you?
Well, I come from traditional finance world, so I do believe that unless you're a professional trader that spends time, like every day, like 8 to 10 hours trading, and you spend the rest of your time researching, then you can't really beat the market. And then I don't believe that also this. I kind of use the same thinking also for Bitcoin, and I don't think that this would be something that is just to earn money fast. Because as we discussed already, it's hard to say what the price really depends on Bitcoin. So unless you're at your computer all day trading, and following the prices, then you can't really be sure that you will, all of a sudden earn a lot of money by day trading. So I think I really see Bitcoin in most of the cases as a long-term investment. For these reasons. I mean, of course, there are some exceptions, but I think, a common person who invests in Bitcoin, I don't think that, they have time to do day trading and then to make sure that they're going to, earn money on this.
Absolutely. Fantastic answer. Thank you very much. And so now, so you said you came from this traditional financial background. You knew a lot about investing already from like the traditional, also from school and everything that you did. And now you work with also with an investment company, but in the crypto and blockchain Bitcoin space. Could you tell us a little bit what CVVC, so Crypto Valley Venture Capital, is doing, and what your role is there?
Yes. So I joined this company right after UBS, and for me it was really nice to kind of not to quit completely the financial world and just go into startup industry. So this was like a nice mix in between, because CBDC, as its name says, it's a venture capital firm, and we invest in early stage startups. So it's usually we invest in startups before their Series A. So it's like seed, pre-seed, seed, and pre-seed and seed stage. And then we also have incubation program. So not only that we invest in the startups, but we also have incubation program, which we do once or twice a year. And then we have, it depends, between 5 to 12 startups every 6 months coming in, going through the incubation programs, which last for 10 weeks.
Okay.
And then not only did we invest in them, but we also teach them how to do business and some technological stuff and so on. And then besides the investment part and the incubation, we also do a lot of events. So we do a lot of blockchain conferences, meetups, and then we also have a co-working space. And we have co-working space in Zug, which is the heart of Crypto Valley. And then we have another co-working space in Vaduz. And now we're also working on opening an office in Dubai.
Oh, really?
And we also plan to have incubation program there as well, together with some partners. But unfortunately now, because of coronavirus, we had to delay our plans, so most probably in 2021.
Okay.
This is going to happen.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, you're really doing a lot for the community, you know, all these also meetups and events and co-working and everything. That's very cool. Yeah. You are very broad in like you all basically everything. That's my perspective. Basically everything that has to do with the blockchain or crypto or Bitcoin is kind of in your focus. What is it that you yourself, what is it that interests you in not only Bitcoin, but also crypto and blockchain projects?
Yeah, so what we like to say, so first speaking from the angle of my company, we like to say that we're agnostic and we're kind of neutral, and we just, we like the technology and we want to see what is going to happen with the technology. So we do not prefer, one over the other. And me personally, now working there in this blockchain incubator and in this VC, we also do some sort of, we also do consulting and advisory of other projects. So this gives me a lot of inside view, like of what other companies are doing and how they're applying their technology. And for example, some of you may know that CBDC has this report, top 50 companies. And when I just joined, I was so interested in understanding what are all these companies doing, so that I took this report and I started reading, going to their websites, researching, reading their white papers and so on. And I just love to see how they're applying blockchain technology to solve different problems. And then you can usually see, they're like these companies are usually grouped. So it's finance, it's protocols, and then you have some other applications of blockchain technology. But these are like the most common use cases. And I just like to see how they do it.
Just explore and be open and learn about a lot of things. So what is it? Maybe what are like main learnings? Did you already have main learnings from seeing all these startups evolve?
Yeah, well, there are some pros and cons of blockchain. I mean, for example, obviously, there are many benefits of having your business based on blockchain, which everybody already knows about these benefits, but there are also some downsides. And for example, one interesting thing that I observed lately is that some companies actually only use, which is kind of not a good thing, that they just use blockchain just as a means of getting funding, and then they get themselves into trouble of like, okay, now what do? We raise money from all these people.
Doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't even make sense. Like, it's not necessary, first of all, for our business, and then second of all, now we have all these commitments, and now all of a sudden we have to deliver on our promises,
and we have to do something with blockchain now.
Yeah, exactly. And then this causes and I think as a consequence of this, that's why we also see so many projects who kind of in the end fail, and then that's how this, like, what people call shitcoins emerge, because these companies, they just thought, okay, at some point let's base our business on blockchain, but then when it comes to delivering results, it's more difficult than what they anticipated, and that's why we see so many failed projects in the end.
Yeah. That's interesting that you name this shitcoin, because that there are definitely a lot of shitcoins lately. So there are more than 5,000 different crypto assets. A lot of them have basically no activity anymore, basically no volume. So I think maybe that's one reason, that something that I also I am observing now also in the frame of this project, is that there is a little war going on right now between like the Bitcoin maximalists who think Bitcoin is new money, it's everything, it's the best, and they really they're kind of hating against all these other crypto projects. For them, it's just all shitcoins, which I can understand to a certain degree, because, you know, as said, a lot of them are just doing it for the fast money, and then they don't deliver anything, and it's, you know, people lose money because of it. So so they're very toxic against these. And then on the other side, it's this it's this narrative. Okay, yes, let's be agnostic, let's be open, let's see where the technology brings us. Yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about this, or how do you observe it? Maybe a little bit from a more objective perspective. Why is there such an infight between Bitcoin and crypto people?
Yeah, well, you know, I really like to stay neutral, and I like to, you know, stay open-minded and see what's going to happen. I understand both sides, but I think but I also understand why there's conflict between them, because, you know, like all these Bitcoin maximalists, they are kind of very thoughtful about like world problems, and like you have to be a very special person if you care about, you know, decentralization, or like governments printing money, or you know, dictatorship, or, you know, banks controlling your bank accounts. And so these are some very important and deep questions that not like average person thinks about. And then if you're a Bitcoin maximalist and you care, and this is why you like Bitcoin, that means that you really, there's substance behind you, and, you know, you're deep and there's substance. And then, for example, you look into some of these other projects where there's no substance behind them, and you look into their token economics, and it's just like almost like a scam, you know. And then, of course, you know, because you understand and you care about serious and important things, and of course, when you see something that is like shit, then of course, you know, you're kind of thinking and almost like hating on these people who are scammers in the end, and who do not care about important things in as, for example, Bitcoin maximalists do. So I do understand why there is a kind of fight between you know, altcoins and Bitcoins.
But obviously, you still think that there are some valid projects around that?
Yes, that's important to mention. So there are also different types of tokens, and you know, for example, I do believe in tokenization of assets, and I do believe in security tokens. So I do believe that there are very good projects which you know, which have future, but then there are a lot of other projects with, you know, for example, some utility tokens that are, you know, debatable, and that, you know, you are really once you take time to really look into their economics, then you really realize, okay, I don't know if this makes sense. So it really depends, and that's why I say, let's just stay open-minded and see what happens.
And then the reason why Relai, for example, really now decided to only be united, to be Bitcoin only, is exactly that as well. So either all the other cryptocurrencies are either scams, and then obviously we don't want to offer scams to invest to our customers. And then there is maybe a subset of cryptos that make sense in a way, like in their use case. But their use case is usually not saving or investing or anything. They're utility tokens. I mean, obviously, as you said, tokenization of assets, yes. But then this is basically usually an underlying of a real asset, or, you know, anything.
Yes, exactly.
And then, but like, there's no other cryptocurrency than Bitcoin that's actually optimizing for this use case of long-term saving, you know, and investing. So it's and sound money. And that's what convinced us in the end to really stay, you know, Bitcoin only, because we think that it's really the best savings technology in the world, and we think that everybody should have access to the best savings technology in the world, because saving is an important thing that people should be able to do, nevertheless, whether they live in, you know, a country where the government just prints money like crazy and stuff like that. Everybody should have access to this. And that's why we really stay Bitcoin only. That's and I think that's a very valid point that you said. You know, that you don't want to expose people to these scams, and I think that's a very hard job that you also have to do. I mean, you also don't want to invest into scams, right? And the things that don't make sense.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And you know, for example, that's one of the reasons why I mentioned that we invest in between 5 to 12 startups is that we usually, you know, as CBDC and as CV Labs, we really try to find real substantial projects, you know, and then we say, okay, if we don't find, because we have, I don't know how many applications, I think, I mean, over, I mean, I don't want to say now numbers, but we have over 100 applications, and then we scan all these projects, and then out of this 100, then we say, okay, like there are, you know, maybe this time only 5 that are going to be really well, because we really want to make sure that we invest in like real meaningful use cases and not in scammy projects.
Amazing. Thank you very, very much for being here, Ivana. Maybe one last question, which we also always ask is how much of your total funds do you hold in Bitcoin, or maybe in your case in other cryptos?
Yes, that's a very good question. And what I want to say there is that right now I'm investing a lot in starting my own business and in my education. So like more or less everything that I earn right now goes into that. So I'm not investing in Bitcoin right now, but definitely in the future, I plan to have a significant portion.
I mean, it's also a savings capital, right? Once you actually have something to save, if you invest everything in yourself at the moment in your business, then obviously you don't have anything to save. But once you will be will have like a couple of bucks end of the month to save. What do you think? How much, like percentage-wise, would you put into Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's difficult to say. I mean, it also depends on your person's appetite for risk, you know. And I'm kind of young and I'm single, so I don't mind investing a larger portion of my income in riskier assets. So definitely, I think I would invest. I don't know. I mean, maybe even up to 50% of my assets in Bitcoin.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Interesting. Let's close it with that. Thank you very much, Ivana.
Thank you very much for inviting me here.